I think I just always put quality over quantity. You grow up in this market and you watch all these artists who are trying to do this music thing, but they can't get off the ground. They're doing all these local shows that, nobody really important is at, nobody's really supporting that much. My thinking in that process was like, how do we create a platform for these local artists to have a bigger stage? How do we get them in front of more fans, and how do we create a platform that garners more attention through the internet? I just kept a high standard, bro, and like really just stuck to my guns and trusted my team, trusted our taste level. I had to deal with a lot of people that kind of felt like, we weren't supporting the city or we weren't looking out.
Hey, I'm your host, Kosh. This is the Creative Breakthrough Podcast. This podcast was created to give artists the codes to build audiences, cash flow, and make a living doing what they love, ultimately to eliminate the starving artist. Today's guest is Jordian Ross.
What up?
And thank you for joining me, bro. I appreciate you. I want to start by asking you, how would you describe yourself in one word?
How would I describe myself, or what I do, or what?
Yeah. One word.
One word. Executor.
I agree. I think that's a great word. For the people who are unfamiliar with you, how would you describe yourself in one sentence?
I would say that I do business development, utilizing a variety of services, including event marketing, grassroots marketing, and a variety of like A&R services.
And how long have you been doing that?
Started in 2011, launched my company in 2012, and been rocking since. So it's been about 10 years, 10, 11 years.
Yeah.
And even prior to that, I was like, just in the streets in Columbus, doing a lot of like grassroots party promotion. That's kind of where I really got my knack. But like in college, I was doing some promotion in college. And then when I graduated, I hit the ground running.
And so did you start your business around the same time as you did that Kendrick show?
Yeah, man. So I was 2011? 2011?
Yeah.
2011, I was working with a group by the name of Kings Row. And I actually did Dom Kennedy right before we did Kendrick Lamar. So Dom Kennedy was the first artist I ever booked, and really just, was taking a model that I kind of learned from some of my big brothers in college. I took that model and, just decided to replicate it back home, just booking artists early. Dom Kennedy was one of the first artists we booked. And then Kendrick Lamar was like, kind of like that breakthrough show for our market in Columbus. And then that's kind of like when I decided I was like, I wanted to do music full time.
So 2011, you said you took that model. So what does that model look like at that time?
I mean, it was just simply getting in early with these artists, man. You know what I'm saying? Doing outreach. It's like, 2009 was that kind of like peak blog era. So I came up in that era when it was easy to get in contact with artists via whether it was Twitter, finding contacts, via the blogs. So it was really just reaching out. Artists were hitting the road for cheap. You know what I'm saying? I think the first artist I ever reached out to was Wiz Khalifa. He was down to come do 2 markets for me for like $4K. You know what I mean? So, yeah. So
wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, bro. So just reaching out to artists and just showing that genuine love as they were coming up. That's really the model. It wasn't nothing too sophisticated. But like I said, Dom Kennedy, Kendrick Lamar, shout out to both of their teams, man. They showed me love. I was a promoter out in Ohio, not really knowing what I was doing, just kind of eager to learn and get my foot in the door. And I was able to, work with some artists that, went on to be pretty big. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What did you hope to gross on a 4K advance, so to speak?
Man, to be honest with you, bro, I wasn't even truly thinking about the money at that point. I was just eager to start. I didn't even do those shows. I was in college still, and I was trying to book him. I was trying to book him at Bowling Green, and I was trying to book him back home in Columbus, Ohio. But the guys back home, they wasn't hit, bro. It was like, this is like the flight school Wiz Khalifa. And it was just like, yo, who's Wiz Khalifa? We're not about to put 2K up for this show. So I missed out on that show. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't too worried about the bread then. You know what I mean? I was just like, yo, let me get this show off the ground and get my foot in the door.
And what year was that?
That might have been like 2009.
So through that experience, right, you've kind of given me like a good kind of high level overview of where you started. But when do you think you achieved your first creative breakthrough?
I think the first breakthrough was the first time we did South by Southwest.
Give me the year.
That was 2013 was the first time I did South by Southwest. But you know what? I would actually say it was before that. So I think the first time I really broke through, there was a show I did in Columbus. I called it Generation Next. But I booked a variety of artists from Cleveland, Ohio. I booked 2-9. I brought a group up from Atlanta. And I brought like Chance and Save Money down from Chicago. So it was like this regional showcase. And that's when I really like started to get eyes for, being a curator. People really appreciating what we were bringing to the culture. A lot of managers, were reaching out, appreciating our platform. And you know how it is in Ohio, trying to build something in Ohio. That means a lot for people to recognize what you do outside of, that immediate market. I thought about South by because those showcases, when I started doing showcases at South by, that's when, we really reached more of a national audience. You know what I mean? And that's when
Mm.
people were able to tap in, and I was able to get some press for the first time, and it really expand my network and my audience.
And what did that look like from a like logistical standpoint? Like who was on the show and what did that cost?
So in 2013, man, I partnered with my homie Fam. I used to run a platform called Never Rich. He was working with all the Cleveland kids, Lorraine Chia. He did a lot of work with 29, Tezo, all those guys. I partnered with him, and then I partnered with Pesh from Live Mixtapes. So between partnering with them, it was really just a matter of like finding a venue out in Austin, Texas. This is my first time going to South by. At the time, South by was like, it was at the time when artists could walk around down on 6th Street and not have to worry about getting robbed and shot at and all that whack shit. So yeah, it was just a matter of reaching out and just being on the phone with those guys, man, tapping into our network of artists that we wanted to see on the stage. Live Mixtapes was able to pull through a ton of talent. We actually had Migos on that stage early, man. We had the Migos on that stage. Yeah, we had the Migos. I wish I had the lineup in front of me. I don't, man. But there were probably about, let me see if I can look it up, man, while we're talking. But there was
I mean,
probably
Migos in itself is crazy.
Yeah, bro. There was probably like 30, 40 artists on that stage. It was all day showcase. So just, that was the first time I had to manage a stage of that, that capacity. Shout out to my boy Chris at the time. That was my co-founder with Animal House. So he was helping me manage all that stuff. And, we just jumped in the field, bro, and learn by doing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's crazy. I saw he said Uzi and Scheme too.
Let me find this flyer, bro. Hold on, man.
So who opens the show and who closes the show with 30 artists?
Bro, I couldn't tell you, man. I really couldn't tell you. Let me look it up. Hold on.
That's insane.
We had Cash Out, Freeman Gang, Heroes and Villains, Smoke DZA, Harry Fraud, Trade of Truth. Young Dolph was on that lineup. Rich Homie Quan, Drummer Boy, Gangsta Boo, Shot Glizzy, Young Nation. 29, Tezo, Reed, Sunny Digital, Say It Ain't Tone, Vic Lloyd, Austin Mills, man. Yeah, bro. It was a ton of talent on that lineup.
Yo,
it was indoor, outdoor stage. It was a ton of talent on that stage, man. Yeah, bro. Shout out to Live Mixtapes, man. They brought through a lot of that talent. You know what I mean? I'll definitely be honest about that. That was like, really getting into the field and like, all right, we're doing this for real. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Pivotal.
Yeah.
What was the idea around doing it as an all-day showcase and having that many artists?
Well, that was just the vibe of South by Southwest. That's how it went. And we were lucky enough to get a fire venue with 2 stages, indoor and outdoor. They probably gave us like an 8-hour slot. And that was just 10 a.m. Yeah, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. is what we did. And yeah, that was just the nature of what South by was. Like I said, man, it was a lot more of a community vibe, man. I don't know if we paid any of those artists, bro, to be honest with you. You know what I'm saying? And that's crazy to think about. You know what I'm saying? So like, we would have kept doing South by, but the nature of the game changed, bro. Artists don't move unless they getting paid a bag. You know what I'm saying? So that vibe that was, that we had on that stage, everybody just coming through, appreciating the opportunity, tapping in, with Live Mixtapes, tapping in with Animal House, Never Rich. That shit is over with. You know what I'm saying? It's like, who got the bag, bro? You know what I'm saying? That's pretty much the culture now, man. So yeah, bro. Shout out to that.
When did you see that shift happen?
So 2015 was the last showcase we did down at South by. I think I might have paid a few artists, bro. I can't really recall. That was the first time I did South by Southwest by myself. So 14, I partnered with Live Mixtapes again, and then 15, that was like our breakthrough show. That was like probably the best show at South by that year. We had Uzi on that stage, Dej Loaf, Denzel Curry, Post Malone, a ton of artists. OG Macko, he was having a moment at that time. Chance popped out just off the muscle, just because of that relationship we had at the time. So I think after that, and even that year, bro, I think that's kind of when I started to see like, the nature of South by Southwest, a combination of all the sponsors coming in, and then just like the nature of the business, right? Like, artists used to appreciate those guys who reached out early, and it was, and they still do. I don't want to say that they don't, but it definitely just changed, man. Artists want to get paid, and I, as an artist first guy, I don't fully blame them, but sometimes you got to take advantage of those opportunities, you know what I'm saying, and just do things off the strength.
Yeah, absolutely. So from you seeing that change, you went on to do 21 Savage, Uzi. Those were independent shows. So walk me through that and then to where you are now.
So I think 21 Savage happened in 2015. That's actually pre me moving to New York City. And that bill, we had Lucky X on that. We had Lambs on that. And then we had our homie Friday October, who was a New York artist at the time, that Chris Mars B I built with. But a lot of people don't know, man. We took Fat Man Key on tour in 2014 and kind of helped him, we helped him out route his first headline tour And 21 Savage was on that tour, just like as a hype man. I don't think he had any music. He had like one song out. You know what I'm saying? It's funny because I found that footage. I'm going to have to put that footage on my story, man. I found that footage. I just going through my archives the other day. And 21 Savage just jumping around, bro. Just, hype. Now he's, doing 400K first week. You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah.
But yeah, bro, that 21 Savage show, that was the last show I did before I moved to New York City. But, it was just a combination of, utilizing the relationships that I had built. Shout out to Key Sandra.
Yeah, Key Henderson.
She was still managing 21 at the time. Lucki is somebody that we've been building with and working with since, even before 2015, just through that Midwest connection. I booked him a couple different times. And then Lambs was somebody we were doing some artist development work. And then, like I said, Friday October was somebody who, we had built with through New York. Crazy thing about that show is, man, that was actually one of our weaker shows. And that was one of the frustrations that, me and my business partners had. It was just like, yo, we would bring this talent through our city. Yeah, I don't know what it is about the market, but, at the time, just, that early adoption just wasn't a thing. You know what I'm saying? Unless you were really tapped in. We had kind of built a community of people who really appreciated, tapping in with those artists early and, we're on the blog and stuff like that. But 21 Savage didn't do that well. It was a light show. I was embarrassed as a promoter, to be honest. But nonetheless, you know what I'm saying? You win some, you lose some. It is what it is.
And so you went on to do Uzi, and then how did that lead you to New York and like that whole situation?
So we went on to do Uzi. I just reached out, same way I reached out to all these artists, man. I'm trying to think the first point of contact with Uzi. I'm not 100% sure how the relationship first started, but I know I had just reached out and wanted to do a show. I think I reached out to either Don Cannon or Lake is the one I ended up building with. Lake from Our Generation Now, who working with Jack Harlow and them now. But yeah, we had him on that South by Southwest showcase, the last one we did in 2015. And through that relationship, I was just I just kept building with Lake, and I got Uzi at a crazy low price, bro. I paid $4K for him, and then I had booked him out I think maybe 2 months after South by Southwest. And then after South by Southwest is really that springboard for him. So by the time he came through New York, it was really fine for Lake to honor that price, bro, because he was probably going for 10 to 15K. And we had got him, put that deposit down, for the 4K show. But yeah, I was living in New York at the time that we did that show. So we came home, set the city on fire, and came back up here. But what's fire about that relationship, it actually led to our relationship developing at Atlantic Records. So we tapped in with Atlantic and his project manager. And we were kind of like a buffer in between, that relationship when it first started. These artists are tough when it comes to really tapping in with their label. But we did some early artist development with Atlantic. My boys shot some fire graphics for Uzi's first billboards and shit like that. And yeah, man. And then, we did Tory Lanez that same year too.
So it sounds like it's really just based off relationships, honestly. Just a lot of building relationships over the years.
Yeah, bro, it's always a combination of relationships. Just, I think the industry term for it is trend forecasting, just kind of identifying, what's popping in the culture and who's trending up and whether or not we're fans. It's rare that we work with stuff or promote stuff that we don't really truly enjoy. But yeah, we're lucky enough to build with those teams and those managers. Yeah.
What made you make the decision to move to New York?
Man, to be honest with you, it was a combination of things, bro. At the time, I went back to school after I left Bowling Green. I went to Chicago. I went to Columbia College Chicago because I just saw a ton of dope music creatives, professionals, et cetera, come out of this program. And my college years were kind of wild, so I didn't really learn a lot of dope, useful skills. But I wanted to learn a little bit more, specifically in music, entrepreneurship, and build my own label and business and stuff. So I went there for about a year. Didn't really love a city like that. It kind of reminded me of home. It was real segregated, you know what I'm saying? So I moved back home. And I applied for a marketing role for Red Bull. I applied for a marketing role for Uber. They both kind of just shitted on me. So at the time, I think I turned 26 that year. So I was just looking up damn, what I'm about to do. You know what I'm saying? I had a decent resume, for my own business, but obviously, you need capital to continue to build your business. So that was a point where I had kind of just reached a glass ceiling and yo, where's this business going to go from here? And then Chris was the one who actually put that battery in my back and me and Will's back and was like, yo, bro, it's time to go to New York. You know what I'm saying? Let's just do it. And we did this shit on a whim, bro. I think we talked about it, 1 month. And then, 2-3 months later, we packed up a SUV that we rented from Enterprise. I rented an Airbnb for a month, maybe, I think. It might have been shorter than that, bro. And then just decided we was going to figure it out. And came up here and, just hit the ground running, bro.
That's dope, man. Thank you for sharing that. That's important too. It's speed is important and taking massive action is important. And I tell people that all the time. And I don't think enough people do that. I think a lot of times and this isn't my quote, but what I've heard is we spend 65 days to make a decision that takes 1 hour.
Yeah.
You know? So I'm just inspired by that, man. Because I did a similar thing when I moved to Atlanta. But, I mean, moving to New York is like a totally different animal. So
Yeah, I think for me, New York was actually my third move. So post undergrad, I went to DC for about a year just to really get out of my city, bro, because my city wasn't really the most conducive place for me just coming up, you know, how I came up or whatever. I just wanted to get out of Dodge. So I went to DC for a year, and then I went to Chicago. So while New York was definitely a big risk, I kind of already had a little bit of, you know, I kind of just built a little bit of callous up as far as just like putting myself in an uncomfortable position. But like I said, man, kudos to Chris, because he was the one that was like, yo, bro, it's time to do it. Let's just jump off the porch, bro, and put ourselves in the mix. And yeah, man, I was a lot more risk averse than, you know, back then. I was like, yo, let's do it, bro. So we still here.
yeah. So, okay, so that's a great segue to my next question. So, like, what did you fail at as you built this?
Where do I start, bro?
Just start, and then we'll work through it.
Yeah, man. I think the first thing that comes to mind, man, is really just like organization and structure. You know what I'm saying? And really building out a team, and like, you know, really handling the business from an organizational standpoint. I think the first question you asked me is like, how would I describe myself? And I said executor, because that's what I enjoy doing. I just like getting shit done, man, and, you know, painting pictures. You know, the events for me is kind of like art. You know what I mean? You bring these people together, these artists together, and you create a moment that is able to permeate culture and create waves. You know what I mean? So that's where I really get the most joy out of what I do. So I think, you know, I never really slowed down until, you know, a few years ago to, all right, let me start balancing the spreadsheets and really counting every dollar that's coming in and out, and like, all right, let me cut back on some of the marketing and the promotion, because I want to make sure, you know, we profit off this event. You know what I'm saying? I was very much a for the culture guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, let's do it for the culture, bro. Like, you know what I mean? Doing it for the money. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, I don't regret that attitude at all. You know what I'm saying? But I think that's one of the areas I feel like I failed at, because, you know, I took some losses. And another, just doing business with the wrong people. It's not something that happens frequently, and happened one time, but it cost me a lot of money. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, man, because it's somebody I trusted. You know what I'm saying? It's somebody I trusted and I've known for a while. You know, it's my family. I don't know how to break it down other than they could call me off guard, bro, and just really, you know, really swindle me. And, you know, come to find out, this is what he does. But that was a big failure for me, just because it put me back. You know, I was down like 40 grand. That was working capital for our business.
I still want to touch on failures, but like,
yeah, bro.
Set that scene for how you bounce back from that.
So I will say, you know, I was never super unprepared for the worst case scenario, right? So I've been dealing with a lawyer since I got here. So what, almost eight years now. And I just had to sick the dog on him, man. You know what I'm saying? And really, you know, put some fear into his heart, and really play that legal game and protect myself that way. So it cost me some money to get my money back, but that's how I was able to bounce back. And I think, you know, I would say the lesson in that for me at the time, I was trying to make some money plays. That's what it was, right? It was a Gucci Man show back home in Columbus, Ohio, and it was a Migos show back home. And these are home run shows, you know what I'm saying? We profiting like 20, 30 grand a show, and a nigga ran off with the bread, bro. So I would say that, you know, I haven't really made any super like money hungry moves since, but yeah, that's how we bounce back. It's one of those things where, you know, it's part of the game. You win some, you lose some. Promotions has always been a nasty game. It's part of the reasons why I never collaborated with those type of people in my city. It's part of the reason why I believe in just, you know, doing my own thing and being independent, working with people I love and trust. But again,
doing good business.
It's somebody I thought I could trust, and it kind of bit me in the ass. But it is what it is, bro.
Yeah, so with that, and we can move on. I just wanted to ask you one more question about that. So in regards to like those money plays, you said it sounded like you were approaching it from a place of like scarcity or urgency. So what was that? How was that opportunity presented to you?
I just came into some money, right? I came into a decent amount of money where I could invest into a bigger show. I was just thinking about the future of my company, bro. I was like, yo, we need more capital. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to bring people on. I'm trying to bring bigger shows to New York City. You know, how can I take advantage of my network and our business and our name, and really do something that's going to garner a little bit more money. You know what I'm saying? So that was pretty much, that's it, bro. I was just looking to get more capital.
So you felt like it was calculated, and then it was just like, yo, I got this snatched away from me because somebody, you know, kind of betrayed me.
100%, bro. Contracts was in place. That's why I was able to, you know, protect myself. Contracts was in place. I've never done any handshake deals or nothing like that. I like to work from place of, you know, legit business, just because I know how this business can be. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Do you have any more failures you want to share before we move on? Because these are good. Like, these are really helpful for people to understand?
I'll speak on, you know, my relationship with my last client, my biggest client to date, Lucki. You know, I met Lucki in like 2014, and we've been working on and off since, just helping him do some development work, whether it be booking him for shows, you know, helping some of his previous managers and doing some day-to-day work. And long story short, that relationship ended about a year and a half ago. I don't know if I would really call it a failure. I think it's just an unfortunate ending to what was a good business relationship.
So a lesson.
Yeah, I mean, there were some lessons there that, you know, I won't probably speak on just because it's a little bit sensitive to the relationship between our team and him. But I think all in all, you know, just from a talent management standpoint and just managing human beings, I was able to just, you know, learn some things and, you know, also take accountability for some of the things I did, but also, you know, hold people accountable and, you know, just learn how to do that type of business going forward, right? So like, I don't know how familiar you are with the artist management space, but a lot of artist managers coming out of a situation like mine, you know, they'll speak about how they won't do commission-based deals anymore, right? Like, this is a partnership, so I need an equity-based management deal. So that's 100% how I'm looking at anything management-wise going forward. And more importantly, even outside of the management side, you know, we got distribution now, and we can speak on that a little bit later. But I'm kind of looking at, you know, a bigger picture as far as like, you know, really running my own label and allowing other people to do that management stuff. You know, management is a headache, man. It's babysitting, to be honest, and that's no disrespect.
It's putting
to
yourself
artists.
second.
Yeah, that's no disrespect to artists, because, you know, artists are sensitive about their work, and, you know, especially the most talented ones, the most special ones, it takes a special person to deal with that. So yeah, it wasn't necessarily a failure, but, you know, obviously I think we all wish, you know, things would have ended different, but, you know, God works how he works, man. And, you know, I just push forward, bro. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's really good. I appreciate you sharing that. I mean, you didn't have to tell me that, so I'm grateful that you shared it. Exclusive.
Yeah.
Exclusive. Jordy speaks on relationship. No, okay. So that's a good segue to my next question. So it's like, okay, so you brought up the attorney situation. You brought up having contracts in place. You brought up having the right people in place. You brought up relationships and commission and equity. So I want to talk about what are 3 strategies or systems that you've used to help you succeed. I'll end up asking you that question again. Before I ask you that, I just want to understand why you want to choose an equity over a commission-based.
Equity just protects yourself from getting fired, point blank. You know what I'm saying? Like, if it's an equity-based deal, you maintain some ownership and some value into the product, in the business that you built. So in our case, you know, we built probably a multi-million-dollar business, you know, between his touring, between his music, between his merch. You know, there's other avenues of income for who Lucki is and what he's able to create. And, you know, and kudos to what he built before us too, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, I won't take 100% credit for what he's built, but we definitely were able to, you know, take him from a place of not really having that business in place and build that business up. And then when a relationship ends, you walk away, best case scenario, with what's called a sunset clause, where you kind of maintain a commission off, you know, the last 2-3 years of that relationship. But in an equity-based deal, you maintain points or, you know, a percentage on the actual product that you build. And that can go for whether that's the music, whether that's merch. And I'm still learning about, you know, what those equity deals look like, but I know at the very least, you know, you maintain some ownership of the music. And obviously you don't want to take a lot of ownership over this artist's product, but it just protects yourself, because, you know, you spend 2, 3, 4, 5 years building a multi-million-dollar business, and then you walk away, and it's like, you know, it's like hearing about all the people who put 30 years at a business, and then as they get ready to retire, the pension snatch right under them. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's just a protection. It's a protection for managers. Managers have probably one of the tougher, you know, they get the short end stick of this business. So that's why, you know, if you talk to managers, bro, they'll probably all tell you the same thing. I think the way the commission is set up, you know, it's not a bad situation. You know what I'm saying? If I was to get in business with another artist, you know, I might do commission to start, you know what I'm saying, just to start the relationship. But the goal would have to be, you know, we got to look at something a little bit more on the partnership side.
Yeah. Like vesting over a certain amount of time. But also, when it comes to that point about owning the music, right? Are we talking about owning a percentage of the master? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, and to be honest, I don't even know if I would need to own it. You know what I'm saying? It might just be a license. So maybe it's like a 10 to 15 year license, which is still allows me to, you know, get a royalty based income off of that product. Yeah. So like I said, I need to figure out how these artists are, or how these managers are putting together those deals. But it's just not something I'm prioritizing right now because I'm not super interested in jumping back into management. But, you know, Ty, who manages Brent Faiyaz, he's famous for, you know, structuring one of those good deals. With him and Brent have a really interesting deal. He wrote like a book on it. I haven't even read it, but he wrote a book on it, like a playbook on it. So it's a good resource out there for anybody who's interested. I still need to tap in myself.
Do you know the name of it?
I don't.
Do you know his full name so people can look it up? We got Google, y'all.
Yeah, let me see, man.
Because this is super helpful, bro.
His name is Ty Baisden, I believe that's how you say his last name. I think the book is called The Culture Playbook. So yeah, it says it's a series of 5 essays looking at talent management, artistic independence, and navigating the modern music industry. So yeah, bro, I gotta tap in. He's a good example. A lot of people champion what he's built. I just gotta tap in.
Yeah, no, I do too. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, so moving into the strategies or the systems. So like, what can you name 3? I mean, you've kind of spoke about some of them here, and it may just be a reiteration of that. But like, what were 3 strategies that you used to like build a multi-million-dollar business with Lucki even?
Yeah, well, I'll start with just how I approach building my company. I think I just always put quality over quantity, right? So like in the very early days of me building Animal House, you know, I was doing it in a city where, you know, what we were trying to do was looked at in a weird cool kid skateboarder kind of way. And
The
a lot of people kind of,
backpackers.
yeah, the backpackers, a lot of people kind of pigeonhole what we were doing, but you know, we just kind of stuck to our guns, man, with you know, sticking to our tastes and trying to set a high ceiling and higher the standard for our city, right? So like, you know, you grow up in this market and you watch all these artists who are trying to do this music thing, but they can't get off the ground. They're doing all these local shows that, you know, nobody really important is at, you know, nobody's really supporting that much. And, you know, my thinking in that process was like, how do we create a platform for these local artists to have a bigger stage? You know, how do we get them in front of more fans, and how do we create, you know, a platform that garners more attention through the internet? And so with that, you know, I just kept the highest standard, bro, and like really just stuck to my guns and trusted my team, trusted our taste level. And I had to deal with a lot of people that kind of felt like, you know, we weren't supporting the city or we weren't looking out. But you know, that's here nor there. But I would definitely say just, you know, value and quality over quantity has always been something that I felt like was important, because there's a lot of people trying to do what we were doing, creating, you know, promoting shows, promoting artists, etc. But it's like, how do you create something that pierces through the noise and that people can really look at as something that's valuable and they want to be a part of? They want to put their artists on that platform, right? So I would say that's always been a strategy. A big strategy to just really creating events that speak to our culture has always been really just paying attention to what's going on in the community, right? So like when I say the community, I mean the culture. So I've always really enjoyed connecting dots and like really pulling things from different markets or different regions and really putting all these people in the same room. And like, you know, how do you borrow, you know, this different brand equity or different cultural capital and bring that together to create a moment, create a platform, to create a way for what's essentially a product, right? These artists are businesses, and these events are really awesome marketing opportunities. I think obviously the landscape has changed with the pandemic, and then just like the nature of the internet and, you know, the nature of like just technology has changed things a little bit over the years. But at the time, that was definitely something that I felt like we had a real knack for. So that was always a real big strategy to just creating events that pierce through and that people wanted to be a part of. I think on the artist management side, man, and shout out to Will, that's my business partner, man. We kind of play good cop, bad cop on when it comes to talent. But yeah, on the artist management side, I think me and Will were having a conversation the other day. We were talking about how a lot of people in this industry, a lot of conversations we have, right? We have them with a lot of people who work on the industry side, so like the label side, and they don't have the perspective that we have coming from the artist side, or like, you know, whether it's management or doing even artist relations, right? So like, I think being able to sit from the artist side and knowing how these artists are thinking and how they feel, a lot of times in this business, that's looked over, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
you know, these artists they're looked at as products and, you know, whatever. So I think just, yeah, I think just really just tapping in with an artist, man, and really understanding, you know, that development side of it. You know, what does it take for artists to grow personally? What does it take for artists to grow professionally? And just really just kind of like maintaining solid relationships. You know what I'm saying? So
Integrity.
yeah, just being an authentic human being, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're snapping right now. Like, this is great. Okay, so with that being said, how do you, as a promoter, it can be you, but if we're just speaking generally as a promoter, how do you make money doing that?
I mean, there's the obvious avenue, right? Selling tickets and charging people at the door.
And
I
what
don't know
are
if
the
that is.
margins for that? So if you book an artist for 4,000, what are you hoping to make?
It all depends on the capacity of the space. So, let's say I don't got a calculator in front of me, but let's say the venue holds 400 people at $10 a ticket, you break even. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
There's always overhead. The venue might charge you a fee. All these venues have different deals, bro. Some venues might charge you a rental fee and just give you the space. Some venues might just want you to come in, do a booking, and they might allow you to, profit off the door. Some venues might want a door split. Some venues might give you, part of the bar, a percentage of the bar. So it really just depends on the show that you're looking to do. But, you just map it out like you would map anything else out. Like I said, if it's a 400 capacity venue, you pay $400 or $4,000 for an artist, figure out what you need to charge to hit whatever margins that you set for yourself, right? So there's always marketing costs. I used to spend money on radio back in Ohio. I think, you don't really need that anymore with the nature of the internet. But, we'll run some internet ads here and there. But I would say, I would say for the first half of my promoting career, I was only doing concerts. I didn't really do any parties just because, like I said, the nature of the party in the club business has always been kind of nasty to me, man. I've seen so many people fucked over and, it's just nasty in the club space. But when I moved home from Chicago, man, I really just saw the need for that community building in my city. And that's when I got into partying. I don't know if you remember Courtesy Of. I don't know if you ever been to any, but that was like the precursor to what is now Third Shift. But Courtesy Of was an opportunity for us to just tap into that community and really kind of add to the renaissance that was happening. It was like a creative renaissance that was happening in Ohio, bro. And you part of that too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, we was
Thank
all
you.
just like, we was all looking to just like, how can we break through and contribute to this culture that we love so much, right? So I say that to say, Third Shift or Courtesy Of was the precursor to Third Shift, and I brought Third Shift to New York City. So in New York City, it's hard to charge sometimes in New York, right? Because all these bars are free. There's parties 7 days a week. People charge out here for sure, but what we do is definitely niche. And it's more community based than it is like a big capital stream for us. So we do events that, we'll charge sometimes. We'll book artists that obviously we're going to charge for. But basically what I'm getting at is that Third Shift essentially became a service that we were able to start offering labels. And that's actually a model that I learned while I was out here. I was, there's a couple groups out here that were doing some cool things in the market and partnering with different labels for, whether it be artist activations in the market, album release events in the market, just different opportunities to collaborate with labels to showcase talent. And that was another way for us to create capital off of our shows or our parties at that time. So there's a variety of different ways to make money off of that, right? So, obviously there's, you can sell merch at these shows. Like I said, you can offer this, offer your platform as a service if people find it to be valuable. And then you can also just, step in and act as a traditional promoter, book an artist, book a space, put up some tickets online, charge whatever you want, and reap the benefits.
Yeah. So I don't want to hang you too far up on this, but I just want to dig to get specific. Like, what are the typical profit margins for something like that for both models? We talking about 10%, 20? We have razor thin margins. We got crazy 50% margins. Like, what are we looking at?
Bro, it all depends, bro. Like I said, the first time I made a decent amount of bread off a show was that Uzi show. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Because I got him at 4K, and by the time he hit Columbus, I think we might have did like 800 people in that space. So what? I don't know a percentage at the time. I don't got the numbers in front of me, but 4K, 800 people, $25 a ticket. Might have been 35 the night of. You can do the math on that.
Yeah, we'll do it too.
Yeah.
It's $28,000. It's $28,000.
All right. So there you go, bro. You add for what? 4K for the artist. You add another band or two on his writer and just hospitality.
Marketing. What's marketing?
Yeah, throw another 500 for marketing. We wasn't spending a lot of money. I didn't do no radio for Uzi, so it's decent margins for that, right? Yeah.
No, that's good.
But then there's been times, right, where you bet on yourself, tickets don't do what you want, and you might take an L. I think I lost some money on like a Casey Veggie show back home. I think we probably broke even for that 21 Savage show. Kendrick did pretty well. The margins wasn't that crazy, but it did pretty well. That was the second show I ever did, so I think I spent way too much money. I just was buying shit stickers and t-shirt. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was just doing shit. So, but yeah, bro. And then on the service side, bro, we charge a decent amount for our services when we offer third shift as a platform to these labels. I won't throw our price out there, but it's
Right,
a
you
good amount.
shouldn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would never ask you to do that. You should charge multiple
You got to.
bands, multiple bands.
You got to.
Because they have the bread, and I know
Yeah.
because I've worked with them.
Yeah, man.
No, that's great, man. Thank you. I know I'm pressing for answers, but like
it's all good.
that, you know, it's better you give me an old example, right? Because the price went up. So
yeah. Yesterday's is not today's price.
Yeah, facts. Tell them. Like you said, when you first came into it, you bought a bunch of shit you didn't need. So if you want to elaborate on that.
Yeah, man. When I first came into it, I was just looking at like a startup. You know what I'm saying? Just like, yo, how can we build this platform? So my main intention was just like presentation and branding. Like, how can Animal House look like something that just looks and feels like it's already a part of the culture? It doesn't come across as something that some kids are trying to do out in Ohio and, you know, they got some raggedy venue. You know what I'm saying? Like, the presentation was really important. You know what I'm saying? So we really stressed that so that it felt good for the artists and the managers. And it was a first impression thing, right? It's like, how can we build our reputation up more so than how can we, you know, come in and just make a profit and worry about the bread?
Yeah. Do you think paid off from a brand equity standpoint?
Definitely. I definitely think so. Yeah, that's what allowed us to, you know, continue to book talent. That's what allowed us to build a resume for artists and even agents, right? So, like, I'm tapped in with pretty much every agency out there now that deals with hip-hop talent, and they know me because, you know, I used to be the guy booking Uzi, Chance, and Kendrick Lamar in Ohio. You know what I'm saying? And then, you know, we were able to do some shows out here in New York City as well. So just doing good business, bro, and presenting your product in a good way, that's allowed us to just maintain those relationships.
No, that's fire. So thank you for sharing that. Now, I will ask you this. You don't have to answer it, but I just want to know, do you want to talk about what is happening moving forward for you? Do you want to talk about what's to come?
Yeah, no, let's get into it, man. Let's get into it. Yo, the goal for Animal House, even, 10 years ago when I started, bro, I was in my boy Dez's basement, man. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of where I first tapped into a lot of, what is deemed hip hop, right? You know, he had some big bros who were super hip hop heads. They was tapped in like D Block and the Dipset movement with, Cam was in my city all the time back in the day. And that's when I really was like, yo, man, I fuck with this hip hop thing from a business standpoint. I think I want to get involved somehow. So the goal has always been to have my own label. You know what I mean? To have our own label, have our own platform, just be independent. I'm a real big fan of what Dame Dash and Jay-Z and Biggs were able to create. And just that independent mentality is something that I've always kind of held close to my heart. So last year, we actually struck a distribution deal with a company called Audio Salad. They power a lot of big labels out there in the universe. So they're not a music company, just the tech platform and distribution mechanism. So we didn't put out any music last year just because, I was taking some time to learn the business and then also wrap up, our previous business and really just look at, what I want to do in that distribution space. It's a brand new space for us. We come from an entertainment background, and then, luckily I was able to learn the music business through working with Lucki and a couple of the clients of mine. So yeah, bro, Animal House distribution is on the way. Animal House Records, that's the name of the label, distribution service. I got about 3 or 4 artists right now. We're working on some full projects, and then I got a ton of artists, I won't call them kids, ton of artists who want to just use us as a distribution service, man. So, we just want to be, a Black-owned distribution company where, artists who have been in our network and our atmosphere for years, who have always wanted our help or wanted to work with us. Now we have a platform where, it's a little bit less of an investment. Management's tough. We can't manage every artist that we want to help, but with distribution, supplement some of that via services and just some of the platforms we've built and the network we've built over the years. So Animal House Records is on the way. Third Shift is our event platform out here in New York City. We've only done like two events in the last 12 months, bro. Like, we kind of been chilling, just like recalibrating, just looking at what we want to do going forward. So yeah, I'm building out a calendar for next year. I'm looking to do a lot bigger events. My goal for Third Shift is really to just kind of keep it New York based, because I just feel like, man, things in New York just permeate different, man. They look different. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to take it to LA. I don't want to take it to Atlanta or Texas or none of that. If we do go anywhere, it's probably gonna be like the London or Berlin or, something of that nature. So yeah, you can definitely look out for an event calendar dropping for Third Shift. And then again, we'll probably make an announcement soon about the distribution and the label, and then we'll probably be dropping some music top of the year.
Are you doing distro deals
for
distribution? Yeah. Okay.
I don't know if you remember like Fool's Gold and Matt Decent.
Yeah.
They were like culture-facing labels, right? They were heavy in the culture
Right.
space. So they were, Fool's Gold has a touring festival called Fool's Gold's Day Off. And they do a lot of like cultural activation. So shout out to Fool's Gold. They definitely served as a big inspiration, as well as Matt Decent. But that's pretty much the model I want to run. I want to just obviously offer distribution at a base level where artists can just come in and work with us and use us as a resource for information and just basic help, right? Because if you distribute through the free platforms right now, let's say TuneCore, DistroKid, there's nobody you can call that's going to sit on the phone with you and talk to you about some of the things you might need help with. But we want to be able to provide those services at a base level and say, yo, you can at least get on the phone with our Black owned staff and get some help from guys who genuinely care about artist development, right? But then there's another layer to that where we do want to work on actual albums, actual special projects, right? So I want to work on a 5-track EP with artists who are already at that mid-tier level, right? And then we can bring back in our event services to market that product and maybe do a three city tour: Atlanta, Chicago, or LA, New York, or whatever, right? So that's the model, that's the goal.
So some tour support sprinkled in.
Yeah, bro. It's tour support, but it's also just marketing that product, man. Just marketing that product, doing it in a creative way and taking advantage of the brand equity that we built over the years, right? It's like people in those markets appreciate Animal House for what we've contributed to the culture over the years, and just using our event expertise to grow our business and then also to grow our artists.
Fire, man. This is really great. I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah.
Do you want to answer these questions real quick?
Yeah, man. Let me keep the questions coming. I think the first one I see.
How do you start performing on big stages?
Put out fire music. Period.
Okay, that's really a great answer.
Yeah, bro.
What are distro deals?
Distribution deals are like a lower level artist deal, right? So it's just a deal you strike with a distribution company where they're able to either provide some services or some capital, and they'll take like a smaller license, right? So like a full artist deal, like a traditional artist deal, the ones that you hear about on Twitter that everybody's crying about and they hate, and the industry is so cutthroat. These labels are taking like 80% of the artist's, royalty. So you're walking away with 20. A distro deal is typically the other way around. You keep 80, distro takes 20, and then on the opposite end of that, they either offer some capital or they offer services, whether it be playlisting, marketing, streaming, etc.
And then the third one is, do you think more event promoters should be more involved with artist development and distribution as much as the showcase platform? I don't know if I understand the showcase platform part, but the other part, you could answer that.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in that question. Well, it's funny, man, because I actually hate the title event promoter, right? Because what I'm saying?
He told me that before we got on the live.
Yeah, because I've always just looked at what we've done at a deeper level. You know what I'm saying? We truly do value artist development. And that's what I would call myself as, I would put myself in that bucket more so than an event promoter. So I don't know what event promoters should be doing. If you like artist development, you want to work in that space, then that's where you should put your attention. If you want to promote events and just, there's all type of events, there's any type of event you can promote. If you want to just work in that space and throw parties and throw concerts and not really care about what an artist does after they touch your stage, there's room for that too. So it really just depends on what you want to do professionally and kind of where you want to position yourself.
Yeah, I think what you're passionate about should drive you in regards to that, because it's not an easy game to play. Well, that's all I got, man, other than just tell the people where they should find you and connect with all your shit. So
yeah, man. I use my first and last name for pretty much all my socials. Jordian Ross. Jordian is how you say my first name for people who don't know. But I go by Jordy. Animal X House is the platform where, we've been doing our shows and what will eventually house the label and the distribution. Third Shift NYC is the New York event platform where we'll do artist development experiences, album release events.
I'm just going to tell y'all, this is the Creative Breakthrough Podcast. I'm your host, Kosh. If you would like more conversations like this, the goal is to eliminate the starving artist in all creative arenas. So if you're interested in that, learning more about different creative avenues and how to make money in them and how to be successful in them, then you can just follow me. I do these every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, and they come out on all podcast streaming platforms on Monday nights.